The newest member of our panel is Father Nathan. One of the more interesting marriages that he has officiated was a couple where the groom was straight from Ireland and the bride was Filipino. It was Father Nathan's first exposure to all of the Filipino wedding traditions, and the first time that the groom's Irish Catholic family had seen anything like it as well. If you've never seen a Filipino Catholic wedding, go ahead and crash one. They're very interesting, right, Father Wilbert? Father Nathan, though, fondly remembers the first wedding he was involved in as a transitional deacon while at St. James in Okotoks. The wedding was for his brother, Adam, and Adam's bride, Stephanie. To quote Father Nathan, "It was very satisfying to preach to my brother for a good 15 minutes, telling my brother how to live out his married life. He had no choice but to listen to whatever I threw his way. In reality, it was one of the best moments of my life." No sibling rivalry going on in that family. With his talk, Cohabitation, Bound to Fail, I present to you Father Nathan.
I like listening to myself so much, I'm going to record it. So whenever a priest has to sit down with a couple to do the initial marriage interview, I myself have to fortify because there's probably one question that I'm going to have to ask them, and that is, are you living together before you are married? Now I have very deplorable handwriting, so I take the two forms and I put them in front of the bride and groom and get them to fill them out. Now I'm kind of scared because Sister Maria's right here. I'm not supposed to, if I'm supposed to do that. She'll let me know afterwards. But as they're filling them out, I'm looking for one important thing. Is it going to be 2 addresses or just 1? Now if there's 2 addresses, I'm going to assume then they're likely living separately. Or maybe they're just giving me their parents' addresses so we don't have to talk about the whole issue. But what I've discovered is most people don't need to sneak around it. 80% or so are living together before they get married. So what's the next step? Well, sometimes I just say, let's go for this, and let's talk about this awkward pink elephant that is suffocating the room right now, that if you're living together before you get married, you're probably sleeping together before you get married. And you can disagree with me if you want, but the Lord Jesus Christ himself said it. It's a sin. It's called fornication, if you want the actual word. And it's not a small matter. It's not a venial sin like stealing a pen from the office or reading Twilight or something silly like that. It's a mortal sin. It's something that is causing spiritual death in someone's life, whether they realize it or not. It's hurting their friendship, breaking their friendship with God, and they need to go to confession. And so sometimes you just have to say it for what it is, throw it out there. And you get a whole array of reactions. Some people say, well, Father, I disagree. That's very old-fashioned. I think what we're doing is fine. Some are a little more honest, saying, I know, Father, I'm working hard. I'm trying not to. And some give you a blank stare, just, really? The thing is, cohabitation, I learned in the last 50 years, has increased by 1,500% in North America. And it's really becoming seen as a societal norm. And people see it as, here's a wise and prudent move. Move into the person you think you may one day marry. And you kind of go through a trial-run marriage. You work out the problems that may be there. You get to know each other better. You enter into a relationship which seems to have not many consequences. If it goes bad, you can easily get out. You have the added bonus, 1 rent instead of 2, and many see this as a way to prevent divorce in the future. though I was very struck as I was doing more research that many people were suggesting 70 to 80% of relationships that started with cohabitation, and if they did go on to get married, in 5 years or less, ended in a divorce. All that being said, though, I think the understanding is if I get to know my future spouse really well by living together, we'll solve the problems before I make the definitive I do. And on first glance, it does seem like maybe there is some great wisdom here. And I think that's why a lot of people are buying into the idea. This is a good idea. If you don't, you're just kind of seen as old-fashioned and out of tune with the pulse in the world. Try to imagine as a young priest telling this to a young couple, and they look at you like, "Father, what planet are you from?" Besides the fact that, as the Lord has very clearly established, that there's the possibility for sin in this relationship, I think what lots of couples don't realize is they can be setting themselves up for some snares that are going to really throw off a future marriage if it comes to that. And we can't blame cohabitation as being the only reason why people get divorced. But we can suggest that it's causing some damage for the future. And one of the reasons seems to be this. I think when a couple enters into a cohabitating relationship, they're more or less just kind of sliding in, as opposed to really deciding, I want this to last. And this move from maybe occasionally staying over at one another's homes to occupying the same living space, it's not marked out by some ceremony of commitment that marriage is going to cement in a relationship. Sometimes not even a very meaningful conversation will take place. And what you find is there can be some unspoken and completely contradictory reasons why the cohabitating is going to begin. And it seems, and I hope this isn't a stereotype, but I think a lot of women are looking at it as a step towards commitment, a step towards marriage. A lot of guys are seeing it as, let's test it out and postpone commitment if it doesn't go well. The end result is you have two contradictory reasons. And it's going to be this negative interactions that are going to continue between the couple, and their commitment level is going to be so much lower than that of marriage. And what I think women and men do agree on is they're going to look at a live-in partner with a much lower level of commitment than they will to a married spouse. The other reality, it seems, is that it's not as always easy to get out of a cohabitating relationship if it starts to go bad. I think what couples think is going to be a low-cost, low-risk, consequence-free living situation can simply be something you can't get out of for weeks, for months, for even years. It becomes a relationship dead end. They get so locked into the relationship because a lot of commitment has been put in, but automatically realize, wow, there's no positive future here. But I have a decreased likelihood to get out. I've invested so much in already. The startup costs were big, and so I can't move on. Even if I can clearly see a better situation on the horizon, I'm trapped. And sometimes I feel I must push myself into marriage when I know so deeply in my heart it's just not going to work. In the words of one marriage counselor, she had this to say. She said, "I've had other clients who wish they hadn't sunk months or years into relationships that would have only lasted a few months if we hadn't been living together. Others feel committed to their partners, but they're confused. Have I really consciously chosen this person for the rest of my life?" Founding a relationship on convenience or ambiguity can really interfere in claiming that person to be your one and only. And a life built on top of maybe you'll do will never have the satisfaction and the dedication of I do, a commitment to marriage. So the reality we face as a church is so many couples, young, old, are going to cohabitate before they get married. And I think the gut reaction of many is just saying, that's just the way it is, we have to live with it. But I think we can do better than that. I think we as clergy and all the lay faithful, we have to bond together and challenge couples, be countercultural, go against the norm by just simply suggesting to them there's misconceptions out there. This isn't a simple way to prevent divorce from the future. This isn't a relationship that's consequence-free. This isn't always a way to save cash, and it certainly does open you up to the potential for deep sin in your life. And I know myself, I've met couples, some very mature, they have a lot of moral fortitude, And they do cohabitate, and yet they've chosen, I'll live as brother and sister and enter a chaste and celibate relationship until a wedding night. I've met them, and sometimes it can be successful. That being said, I think many couples should be aware, though, can you really live a relationship with that near occasion of sin always before you? We're all prone to weakness. We're all prone to fall. And as people misunderstanding this relationship, it might causing scandal among families and friends. Those reasons in and of themselves, I think, even good reasons to live separately, even if you have a dedication to chaste, celibate living in your life. And so in close, as a church, we're going to be one of those few voices crying out in the wilderness against this. But I think first and foremost, through prayer, through fasting, and through supporting couples, we can offer them a very beautiful pastoral teaching of our faith. Thank you.